Christopher Mathias of Huffington Post has compiled a list of all the anti-Muslim revenge and backlash incidents in North America since the Paris terrorist attack on November 13th. So I want to go through some of these with you, and then we'll discuss it a little bit. First of all, there was Jesus graffiti and a fake grenade that was planted at a mosque in New York. There's a mosque in Coachella, California, which was set on fire in an arson attack. There was a knife pulled on a Muslim woman at a car wash in California. There was a suspicious white powder that was sent to CARE headquarters in Washington, D.C. and in California. CARE, of course, is the Council on American and Islamic Relations. It's a Muslim civil rights group, and this was basically like a faux attack against them. I don't know if actually the results are back yet from whatever the substance was, but at first people thought it was anthrax. Now they're not sure. I guess they're doing testing on it, but either way, there was some substance sent to CARE headquarters. 2 Muslim women in Florida were assaulted. These are separate incidents, by the way. In one case, a woman was shot at, and in another case, rocks were thrown at a Muslim woman. In Texas, rocks were thrown through the window of a Muslim family's home. Fuck ISIS, this is one of my favorites. Fuck ISIS was written on a truck with graffiti parked at a Sikh temple. That's fucking hilarious. That's hilarious for so many reasons. First of all, let's say you did that at a mosque, at a car in front of a mosque. Some of these attacks, by the way, were at like Ahmadiyya mosques, which is a super, super liberal version of Islam. It would make no sense even if you did that at a mosque, because the person you're doing it to is not in ISIS. But then when you even go further one layer removed and you go Sikh temple, unsurprisingly, hateful bigots can't get their hate right. So some more here. There was a Somali restaurant in North Dakota that was set on fire days after Nazi graffiti was sprayed on the building. There was a Muslim store owner who was brutally assaulted in Queens. There was a Virginia mosque that received, quote, "You will all be killed" phone calls. A mosque in Canada was vandalized with "Go home" graffiti. Feces and a severed pig's head were thrown at various mosques. Actually, to be clear, one, it was the severed pig's heads were left in front of the mosque. The other one, the feces, was thrown at the building. There's a Muslim taxi driver who was shot in the back by a passenger because he thought that the driver was an ISIS. We actually cover this one separately on the show. I believe the guy was from Morocco, and he was having a conversation with the guy after he picked him up from a casino, and the guy said, like, "I'm going to go inside and get my wallet." And the guy was ranting against ISIS, and the taxi cab driver was like, "Yeah, I'm a Muslim, but I hate ISIS. They're horrible." The guy said he was going in to get his wallet, came out with the rifle, started shooting, actually got the guy in the back. But thankfully, he's okay. A student mosque in Texas had its glass shattered. A Virginia man allegedly left an explosive outside of a mosque and then threw Molotov cocktails at the mosque. A Muslim woman was assaulted and called a terrorist in Toronto. Arsonists attacked a mosque in Ontario. A Muslim family's house was shot at in Orlando. So they explained that there were a total of 71 incidents since the Paris terrorist attacks. And I'm actually leaving out here all of the ones that that basically fall under free speech, whether or not you like them or think they're hateful or whatever. So, for example, armed, peaceful protesters outside of mosques. A lot of people say, "Oh my God, that's intimidation. Oh my God, they're threatening them," or whatever. But the reality is, unfortunately, you could say, the fact that they're armed and they're protesting, that's actually perfectly legal. Then there's also examples of Quran burnings, which I didn't include in this because, again, I think that definitely falls under free speech. You could burn a Bible, you could burn a Quran, you could shit on the American flag, whatever. That's what freedom actually is. Now, I wouldn't actually deny that, for example, the armed protesters outside of a mosque, chances are if you talk to them, they don't have intellectual criticisms of Islam, like, for example, Sam Harris or Richard Dawkins might do, where they say, "Here's why I'm against the doctrine of Islam." Chances are the people who are doing armed protests outside of mosques they're anti-Muslim bigots, and they don't have sound reason. They're just like, that's the other, and me no like the other. So yeah, I don't like them, so I got a gun. Oh, I'm going to stalk this poor Muslim lady or whatever. So they're probably not good people, but again, these incidents fall under free speech. Even like vaguely worded threats or letters, that still falls under free speech. The only time it becomes a violation is if it's a direct threat of violence. So even with the things I went through here, I'm leaving out the ones that are, legal, but one could argue in poor taste. But the main issue here is clear. We're dealing with, I would argue, number one, idiots, okay? But number two, anti-Muslim bigots who quite literally are blaming all Muslims for the actions of ISIS or the actions of terrorists. And they even go further than that. All people who have somewhat darker skin and practice a different religion. So there was a spike in hate crimes post 9/11. I think it was against Hindus, it was against Sikhs, maybe even was against Buddhists, all 12 of them in the U.S. So it's basically just anybody who's the other. You got darker skin, you celebrate a different religion, okay, we're going to come after you. And the point I want to make here is, guys, this is what liberals are concerned about. Like, and don't get me wrong, are there times where liberal concern for Islamophobia, which is the term they use, do they go too far sometimes where they end up like protecting the doctrine of Islam, which in my view is just as stupid as the Bible and should be attacked? Yes, and that's a problem if they conflate anti-Muslim bigotry with being against Islamic doctrine, which I think is rational and totally fine to be against Islamic doctrine. I'm against Islamic doctrine. So yeah, the line has gotten blurred from time to time. But make no mistake about it, this is what they're really concerned about. They're really concerned about genuine anti-Muslim bigotry. Being that Muslims are a minority in the U.S., they're the other, and we have people who will view anybody who's the other as bad by definition, a terrorist by definition. I'm blaming all Muslims for the actions of terrorists or ISIS or groups like that.